Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel where we talk about Hungarian true crime, murder, mystery and conspiracy cases. So if you are interested in this kind of content, don't forget to like this video, comment, subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss my next upload. Today we are going to talk about a very interesting case that I find very unique and one of a kind because of the murderer's MO. And also because I know this to be the worst police work in Hungarian history. You will see. Hungary doesn't have a lot of serial killers per capita, at least not on record. And this woman called Pap Erzsébet was worth a Ted Bundy. This woman was cool, calculated and cruel, and she killed people because she didn't know how to deal with human relationships. She committed 4 murders between 1957 and 1959 in countryside Hungary, and the police did absolutely nothing to stop her. We don't know much about her life or her family. What we do know is that she was born in Penis, like sometime around the 1930s, and she had at least 3 sisters. On the 17th of January in 1957, she married a man called Rostár István, and they moved to a town called Pereces. However, there they did not have their own home, and they stayed in the houses of their acquaintances. Unfortunately, her husband was an alcoholic, but he wasn't the raging and abusive kind. He was actually a nice and peaceful man who just had a drinking problem. Their marriage was quite short-lived, so after about 6 months of their wedding, Erzsébet got bored of her husband's drinking problem and decided to kill him. No, she did not decide to divorce or separate or break up or just leave him. No. She figured that murder was gonna be the right way to go about things. Erzsébet worked with growing tobacco, and she knew damn well that the nicotine extracted from tobacco leaves is very dangerous and can be fatal to the human body. So she figured that the best way to kill someone easily and quickly was going to be the overdose on nicotine. Several sources claim that she bought several packs of cigarettes and boiled them in water to extract the nicotine from the dry tobacco leaves. However, the problem with that was that the end result, the water, was extremely murky, smelly, stinky, and bad tasting. Besides, it wasn't concentrated enough, and somebody would have to drink at least 7 deciliters of this nicotine-infused water to actually have some kind of damage on them or die. So she had to find a better way of getting nicotine for her planned murder. She was so desperate to get nicotine that she was willing to travel across the country to the town of Hodász, which was 120 kilometers away from her, to her sister called Vajda Lászlóné. Because her sister had a fruit plantation, she was eligible to purchase pure nicotine from the farm shop as a pesticide. So Erzsébet went to her sister with the cover story that she wanted the nicotine to exterminate the rats in her home. Now, when her sister said, "Oh, that's not the best way to kill rats, and it's also very expensive to get the amount of nicotine that you would need for a rat infestation," and she suggested a better poison alternative for the rats. However, Erzsébet insisted on buying nicotine. So she convinced her sister to go to the farm shop with her, and they bought a bottle of nicotine. However, her first victim was not her husband, the person that she wanted to kill in the first place. When she arrived home, she wasn't sure how much nicotine would kill a grown man, so she decided that she should test it first. Erzsébet used to babysit her 2-year-old niece a lot, and that is why the neighbor girl called Tarnóci Ilona, a 5-year-old little baby, used to go over to their house to play in the garden together with the 2-year-old niece. And it was that fatal afternoon on the 1st of August in 1957 that the little unsuspecting and defenseless Ilona went over to play in the garden again. At first, Erzsébet made Ilona drink a full cup of wine, which is about 3 deciliters of 10% wine. And the second time around, she mixed some nicotine in with the wine and gave that to the little girl to drink. Now, poor little Ilona had only as much as a sip of this poison and immediately got sick and started stumbling and fainting. So Erzsébet had the nerve to pick up this dying girl and just dump her on the street so that she wouldn't die in her garden, in her house. And she just left this poor baby there for dead. Why am I so blue? I shouldn't have made a video. The police did a very bad job. When they found her body on the street and took her for an autopsy, the autopsy came up with two very important findings. One was that there was some food or vomit in her windpipe, and the other is that her stomach was filled with alcohol. The police did not care to investigate further why this little girl had alcohol in her stomach in the first place, let alone enough to get her drunk. So they just figured that her cause of death must have been accidental asphyxiation as a result from vomiting that was induced by influenza. Have you ever heard this as a cause of death, that somebody died of influenza? I don't know. Several neighbors came forward and claimed that they saw with their own eyes that Erzsébet was dumping out the little girl's body on the street, but the police dismissed this entirely. Her second victim was still not her husband. About 6 days after the death of Ilona, she went over to her best friend called Fürtös Józsefné, or Mrs. Fürtös. Because this best friend was spreading gossip and rumors and lies about Erzsébet behind her back, they had a falling out. So Erzsébet wanted to make amends and make peace with her best friend and took a bottle of pálinka and brought over as a gift, as a token of their friendship, to make peace. And when Mrs. Fürtös accepted it and took a shot from it, she died instantly. I don't think you guys understand how fast nicotine kills you. Like literally within seconds of ingesting it, you're dead. The first responder who arrived at the scene first allegedly searched the room thoroughly and found absolutely no clues. The policeman also questioned the eyewitnesses that were in the same room when the murder happened. And they all claimed that Fürtösné died instantly after she drank the pálinka that her best friend Erzsébet gave her. But the police dismissed this clue as well. They were like, that must be a coincidence. So they took her body, Fürtösné's body, and conducted an autopsy on her as well. And what came back from this was that she was unfortunately 5 months pregnant at the time of her death. I don't know how much you know about this, but in the 50s, abortions were illegal in Hungary. And by the way, the government is trying to legalize them now again. So women had to turn to different alternative methods to induce an abortion at home. Some of these methods included either drinking the mixture of yeast and pálinka or inhaling the vapor of boiled tobacco leaves to have just as much nicotine poisoning to induce a miscarriage, or at times even risk it and drink this murky nicotine-infused water. When the autopsy revealed that she had nicotine in her blood and she was pregnant, the police immediately assumed that she was trying to do a self-induced miscarriage. But now let's go back to the crime scene. Remember when I said that the first responders searched the room and found no clues? Now when Fürtösné's husband went home after her body was taken for autopsy and searched the room, he found in the middle of the room the shot glass that her wife drank the pálinka from. And this shot glass still had the residue of the liquid that was inside, which was this smelly, stinky, murky something inside. So the husband took this evidence, the glass, to the police, who dismissed it right away. They were like, no, your wife committed an accidental suicide as a result of self-inflicted miscarriage by the use of nicotine, and this shot glass is absolutely of no value. We don't care. But the husband didn't give up and gave it to a forensic scientist who luckily sent it to the police's central lab. Unfortunately, this wasn't investigated any further either way. Anyway, let's talk about the third victim, her husband, Rostár István, who she actually set out to kill in the first place. Now, on the 23rd of August that same year, so just about 2 weeks after her best friend's murder, her husband came home drunk again. Remember when I said that her husband was actually a nice kind of alcoholic and he wasn't a danger to anybody? Now that day, he offered to take his wife on a date, and they went on a nice little boat trip on a lake, and after the boat trip they went to have dinner in a nice restaurant called the Vadászkürt restaurant in the city of Lilafüred. And when the unsuspecting husband was not paying attention and was looking away, Erzsébet slipped some of the nicotine into his wine glass. And of course, as soon as he drank from the wine, he died immediately. The investigation into his death also relied 100% on the autopsy. And because he was a regular drinker, he was an alcoholic, and that day he was already drunk, the autopsy came back with the possible cause of death as alcohol poisoning. His body already had 1 liter of 10% wine. And that's not fatal if you have ever been to a bar. I'm sure you have had a liter of wine by yourself at some point, and you didn't die, most likely. But the police didn't really care to investigate any further because they were corrupt, lazy, communist motherfuckers. If they conducted something as simple as a quick blood test, it would have showed that he had a fatal amount of nicotine in his system. But they didn't do that. And the police still did not connect the dots that now 3 people died a sudden and mysterious death within the same month in Erzsébet's presence. And when Erzsébet went to the police to ask for more information on her husband's death, acting this role of the grieving wife, the police told her that if she did not believe that her husband died of alcohol poisoning, she should try drinking a bottle of alcohol and find out for herself. So about half a year passes by and the investigations on all of the 3 deaths were closed. Erzsébet had a baby from her late husband in the beginning of 1958. Yes, she was pregnant at the time of the murders. However, this baby died very, very young and there is no information on this baby at all. So she decided to move back home to her hometown, Penészlek, where she moved in with her mother-in-law, the mother of the man that she just killed a few months earlier. Together they moved to this village very far away called Tímea in the summer of 1958, where they worked together on a kind of plantation. And this is where she met a man called Holhos János, and they started dating and she married him very, very soon after, like weeks after. However, this marriage was also very short-lived. Just a few weeks into their marriage, she wanted to poison him as well. However, Holhos János, her new husband, caught on and did not drink the poison. Instead, he beat the shit out of Erzsébet and then left her and moved out of their house. However, he did not let the police know about this attempted murder. They did not legally divorce, so Erzsébet kept her new married name, and now she was known as Holhos Jánosné. Soon after this, she got a boyfriend. However, this man was a Romani person, and it is still unacceptable in countryside Hungary to mingle with Romani people. So her family and her acquaintances casted her out of society. Her parents gave her an ultimatum that if she did not break up with this Romani person right away, they would take her out of their will and give all the inheritance to her sister, Juhosné. And yes, this is how we say the married name, and every woman goes by with their married names, except not me. I don't take my married name. Now, at first, Erzsébet did not care and she continued dating this man. However, soon they broke up either way and Erzsébet moved back into the house of her parents. And they made amends and she was back in the wheel, no problem. But she really grew to resent her sister. She never really liked her sister, Juhosné, but now she hated her even more. And it didn't even matter to her that she was back in the wheel. she decided that she was going to kill her own sister. Now we are about a year and a half later. So on the 23rd of April in 1959, she took a bus to Nyírbátor. I don't know what the fuck is up with Nyírbátor. It seems like every serial killer goes there. The Blood Countess was also from there, so you can watch the video I made about her just some time ago. So she takes the bus to visit her sister Juhosné, and she brought her a bottle of pálinka as a gift. Guess what happened? Her sister drank the pálinka and died right away. And the police did a terrible job again, of course. The police in Nyírbátor did absolutely nothing, and they just took the body for an autopsy, but when it came back with no possible cause of death, they just buried Juhosné within a few days after her death. So Erzsébet waited it out, and about 3 months later, when she saw that she was going to get away with this murder as well, she decided to move back to Penészlek. Now she went to the liquor shop to return the empty bottle that she used to keep the nicotine-infused pálinka. Because before mass production, you see, you had to return the glass containers to the shops so they would clean it and resell something in it. So the sales clerk at the liquor shop didn't do a very good job cleaning and rinsing this bottle and just filled it up with a new batch of pálinka. And very soon after that, the sales clerk sold this bottle of pálinka to the teacher of the village. Now, because this bottle still had some residual nicotine inside, when the teacher and his friends drank from the pálinka, they got sick. Luckily, they did not die. It wasn't a fatal amount, but it was enough to get them ill. Somehow they knew that the problem was not with the pálinka, but it had to have been with the bottle. You see, the village knew that Erzsébet was in on these murders and she was poisoning these people. They kept rumoring and gossiping about her. And many people even came forward to the police and told them, like, hey, we know that Erzsébet is killing these people. These are not accidental deaths. But remember when I said that the police dismissed all the evidence? Like they did a shit-ass job? So they never really cared to question the witnesses and the people from the village. As I said, the teacher was suspicious of the bottle and brought it back to the sales clerk. And the sales clerk saw that this bottle was returned by Erzsébet just a few days ago. So the sales clerk, knowing what he knew about Erzsébet, he called the police and let them know that there was this contaminated bottle that Erzsébet returned to him. So the police again didn't do a very good job. It took a few weeks for somebody higher up in prosecution to actually connect the dots. And the new investigation was ordered in the August of 1959. This was when somebody looked at the autopsy results of Juhosné, Erzsébet's sister, again and realized that her cause of death could be determined as nicotine poisoning. So they started investigating this death. So at last, the police finally arrested Erzsébet on the 17th of September that year, 1959, and they put her in a jail in the meanwhile. And in order to extract more information from her, they put her in the same cell with an undercover agent. What a movie plot. Unfortunately, this undercover agent couldn't come up with any information, so they had to let her free 2 days later. However, the police finally did not do a crap job investigating this person. Of course, they didn't want to look bad anymore, so they kept investigating the case. They finally looked into these 4 mysterious deaths. They questioned a lot of people, and when they had enough witness testimonies, they were able to arrest her again, almost a full year later, on the 6th of September 1960. It took them a full year to get enough information to arrest her again. This woman was on the loose for a year after the police finally realized that she was a murderer. Now in Hungary there was a rule that if a pregnant woman or a mother of a child was suspected of a crime, the police was not allowed to arrest her and separate her from the baby for at least 6 months. And guess what? Elizabeth was pregnant again and she was expecting a baby very soon. So in the beginning of 1960, the police was supposed to wait 6 months in order to arrest her and separate her from the baby. However, conveniently and very sadly, her baby died a mysterious death again. According to her, her baby fell down from a horse carriage and died of the injuries of the impact. However, I would not be very surprised if it turned out that she killed this baby as well. Either way, the police at least didn't have to wait out the 6 months to arrest her. When the police was questioning her after her arrest, she denied everything and she even came up with stupid lies and stories about these deaths, but in the end she admitted to her crimes. She wasn't a dumb person, she was just extremely cunning, she was a psychopath, and she had absolutely no moral compass. She knew that she was abusing the law, she knew the consequences of her actions, but she didn't care. She was just killing people because she was a fucked up person. She didn't like her husband, she wasn't going to divorce him, she should kill him. But in order to kill him, she had to test the poison on a little baby girl. And then she had to kill her best friend, the only person who stood with her, because she somehow offended her. And then she had to kill her own sister, even though she was back in the wheel with no problem. And she got so many people sick indirectly, and she most likely even killed her own children as well. She was sentenced to death and she was hanged in 1961. I don't know how I feel about this case. The police did everything wrong from the beginning, and I don't even understand why they did not investigate these murders. If they conducted the proper autopsy on the first little girl, they would have found that it was an obvious murder, that the girl had nicotine and alcohol in her system. For a 5-year-old girl, what was it even doing there? But no, they just figured that it must be accidental asphyxiation as a cause of death. And then all the other times they had so many clues, they missed so much evidence, and they didn't listen to the people in the village who claimed that they knew that Elizabeth was doing this. They just dismissed everything and everybody. What do you think of this case? What do you think of this woman? What do you think of this shitty police work? What do you think of this unique way of killing someone? If you have any more information or comments or questions, you can put those down in the comments section. If you like this video, don't forget to give me a like, and if you want to see more content like this, you can subscribe and hit the notification bell. It really helps me out. So, thanks for watching. Bye!